This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And always something, Shane. I mean, we're in March. This is the most exciting month of the year in some cases, let's say. If you're a basketball fan, absolutely. And then we see what Arizona's done thus far in March, and it's been a roller coaster already. Buckle up.
Well, you know, without context, if you just said, hey, Arizona just laid 113 points on ASU, you'd think, hell yeah. We're rolling right into the tournament. More context is needed. It's Arizona's. I didn't really think until the Iowa State game they had played that badly overall the last few games, even though they lost some of them. The Iowa State game was they just got their butt kicked from the start. It was revenge game for Iowa State. They're finally healthy, like we talked about last week with our guest. The ASU game, not really as much of an excuse for. They're down to, they're playing guys that, from pickup games in the rec center at ASU at this point, and gave up 100 points. So there's ebbs and flows to everything. I don't know how much momentum really matters in going into in the NCAA tournament. I always think back to when Arizona won it all in '97. They lost their last two games before going into that tournament. But they got some stuff to figure out, especially on defense, and we're definitely going to get into that.
Looking forward to having our buddy Matt Muehlebach on. We haven't talked to him in a while. We're going to catch up with him. Always a fun time to sit down with Mr. Triple Double and get his thoughts on everything college basketball related. But before we get into buy or sell, Shane, there's a lot of things that I want to hear about in Shane's standouts this week.
I'm going to try to keep it pithy, but we definitely have to shout out some people. The way the softball team's been playing, Eric, it's difficult to single out just one player. But I'm going to mention Regan Shockey. She went 8 for 13 and scored 5 runs in Arizona's sweep in the Judy Garman Classic in Fullerton, California. That included a crazy win that would have been nice to see over number 4 UCLA in extra innings. Arizona just kept battling back. No one was able to watch it, but Arizona's firmly in the top 10 in all polls now. There's like 3 different softball polls. They're even as high as number 4 in one of them. I think it's the D1 baseball poll. Definitely shaping up to be Caitlin Lowe's best team since she took over from Mike Andreas. So we've mentioned a softball player in this segment as long as I can remember the last several weeks, and hopefully we'll keep that going. Off to a great start. Definitely want to mention starting pitcher Colin McKinney and reliever Casey Hintz for Arizona for combining to hold number 1 Texas A&M to 2 runs on 5 hits in their upset win in the Astros Foundation College Classic. Yep.
Fantastic.
Big credit to Chip Hale and his staff for reloading after losing so many top pitchers from last year. That was my biggest concern going into the season. Arizona allowed a total of 12 runs in 3 games against the number 1, 3, and 18 teams in the country. Number 1, number 3, and number 18. They won 2 of those games. About as good as you can expect realistically.
You bet.
So,
way better than I expected.
So after they got to a slow start, baseball team's definitely back on track. They have a 4-game set at home with Pepperdine coming up, followed by a home game against ASU to open Big 12 play. And finally, a little off the beaten path here, Eric. I'm not a fan of award shows at all. Not anymore. I didn't know the Oscars were happening until a couple hours before they did. But too good not to mention. Kennedy Schneider, who's a former Arizona gymnast, she got a shout out during Mikey Madison's acceptance speech at the Oscars after she won the Academy Award for Best Actress. I guess Kennedy taught Mikey how to dance for the film Anora, which also won Best Picture, and I'm likely to never see. But very cool shout out, especially after we had a former soccer player for Arizona gets a Super Bowl ring and now this. So love those kinds of stories and definitely wanted to mention Kennedy here.
I want to give you another one here. Colton Smith, Shane, is Arizona tennis player out in the Indian Wells ATP 1000 event with all the big guys in there. He upset the number 40 player in the world.
He advanced, to the AP Tour. Yeah, outstanding. And that's another one that I absolutely should have thrown that in there, but the men's tennis, we're going to get into this a little bit more, but the men's tennis team is one of the best in the country now. It's under Clancy Shields, and we've had him on on this podcast before. We'll probably have him on again. But yeah, Colton's he tore it up last year. I think he finished the semifinals nationally in the individual tournament, and he's off to another great start this year.
I mean, you look at it right now when he's beating the pros, number 40 player in the world. I mean, that's probably a good sign that he's going to go far. Really cool to see. So I'd like to get him if there's a chance at some point to have him
Absolutely.
on the program. That'd be a good one. All right, let's get into it. Buy or sell. We're going to talk a lot of basketball. I mean, Tuesday night, Shane. We saw what happened. We saw you talked about the Iowa State game great earlier when we came on. Now let's talk about Arizona's defense. Buy or sell, Shane. It's time to be very concerned. Very concerned.
In terms of guarding the 3-point line, yeah, I'll buy it. It's a trend at this point. Now, Arizona's opponents have shot 43.6% from 3-point range in the last 4 games. Now, if you take out the Utah games, you look at BYU, Iowa State, and ASU, they've allowed 49.3% shooting from 3 in those games. That's enough of a sample size to be considered a trend, in my opinion. Now, for the season, they're allowing teams to shoot 32.9% from 3, which is still pretty good. That number's ticked up the last few games. But Tom Muehlebach did say after the ASU game that maybe teams have cracked their code as far as how to defend or to attack them against the 3. And that's something they're going to have to figure out pretty fast. I think also, and this is not an excuse, but I just think it's the truth. I think Arizona, this team is growing a bit antsy for the tournament. Most of these guys have been there, done that, especially Caleb Love, and most of the other guys have played in the tournament whether for Arizona or another team. And they want to move on to the games that really count. They're tired of getting beat up by Big 12 opponents. Not an excuse by any means, but I think it does sort of explain to an extent, what's happened recently. So, yeah, but even so, yeah, the defense is a concern. Tommy and his staff, Tommy knows they better change things up quick and get his players to adapt, talk to each other. Communication apparently is an issue because it looks like teams have found a way to crack Arizona's 3-point defense, which up until recently had been very good.
All right. I mean, how can you not be at this point? How can you not be concerned? This is an Arizona team that you saw them in person, Shane. They gave up, 96 to BYU. They did hold Utah to 66, fine. Gave up 84 to Iowa State and then 100 to ASU, which is, disgusting. Is that, 3 out of 4 bad games? Arizona's defense have been pretty good for the most part in recent weeks up until then. So I'm concerned in recent, on a recency bias. As far as the entire picture, though, you have to, even if you don't win on Saturday, show me something defensively at Kansas. Hold Kansas below 75 points. If you lose, because Kansas is a good defensive team, so be it. Kansas scores more than 75 with a team that's been struggling on offense as they have. Yeah, I'll be a little concerned.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. And it's Arizona's trying to catch its breath at the end of the season, and they got to go to Fog Allen to finish the regular season.
And then
the life in the Big 12.
Yeah, and then
Doesn't get any easier.
they potentially have to play them again.
Yeah.
If Kansas beats Baylor in the Big 12 tournament, so you could play Kansas back to back. All right. So with that said, Shane, number 2, having lost 4 of their last 7 games ahead of the Kansas game, Arizona does not deserve a top 5 seed in the March Madness bracket.
I'll sell that for now just because of Arizona's overall body of work. I think they've won enough games. They squander some opportunities in non-conference, but those games just don't count against you if you lose them. Help a lot if you win, don't count if you lose. But you look at what they've done in the Big 12, which is, I think, as tough a league as it has been in recent years. Wins over Iowa State and at BYU and home against Texas Tech and several others to be proud of. Their net ranking, their Ken Palm ranking, they're all still very strong. So, they're not playing the best basketball of the season right now, no doubt about it. They're in a bit of a slump, and especially on the defensive end. But I think their body of work to this point, I think they're top 5. They'll get at least a 5 seed, maybe a 4. Of course, we'll have to see how the rest of the season plays out. If they lose at Kansas, don't win a game in the Big 12 tournament, they're probably looking at a 5 or a 6. But at this moment, as of this recording, I think they deserve at least a 5 seed.
And we'll talk about this with Matt later in the show. But I have said this all season, or during Big 12 play, because before that I didn't think they would make the tournament, and I'll stand by that. It's wrong, bad take. Arizona, I would prefer if they got a 6 seed over a 5 or a 4, because I think I think the 3 line is fairly weak this year. I would rather take my chances with a 3 and then potentially a 2 than going up against a Houston, Duke, or Auburn in the Sweet 16. I know I'm looking too far ahead, but I would rather have a chance at one of those 2 seeds, which I think are a lot weaker. I think they're 3 elite teams. You can maybe throw Florida in that mix, but I'll take my chances against Tennessee on the 2 line, or Alabama, who plays no defense whatsoever, than going up against Auburn, Duke, or Houston.
Yeah, strategically that makes sense. I mean, if you hope that maybe a 4 or 5 plays a great game and takes out the 1, and then you're able to play the 4 or 5 maybe in the Elite Eight. Of course, you cross that bridge when you come to it. So I understand that. Again, I don't think the seeds mean as much as they used to for a number of reasons. But I mean, Auburn is legit. I know they got upset the other day, but they're legitimately very
really good.
Duke is really, really good. Houston's really, really good. Arizona's played 2 of those 3 teams. They lost to both of them at home. So I get the logic. Do you remember when Arizona was a 6 seed under Sean Miller, and they won their first round matchup against Belmont, which everyone thought that was like everyone's big upset special. And then they got lucky enough to play Harvard in the second round because Steve Alford's New Mexico State team is a 3 seed, lost to Harvard, the 14 seed. Then they had that showdown with 2 seed Ohio State, and it was a great game. Arizona lost on it. Aaron Kraft hit a shot late, but it could have gone either way.
Great point.
But I'm trying to make your point though, is that they had a pretty favorable path to the Elite Eight, and they came up just short against a very good team. So I will concede your point. I think the 1 line is actually tougher this year than it is in most years. I think you have some very, very good teams at the top. And Arizona, if they get to the Sweet 16, they're very likely going to have to knock out one of those teams, which doesn't seem likely at this point, especially the way they've been playing on defense.
All right. I don't want to sound cynical, but I think we keep it real here. What percentage chance, in your opinion, that Arizona does not win another game the rest of the season?
The gut instinct, the initial reaction to that is like, are you crazy? But then you think about it. They are at Kansas, may play Kansas again. They have a 5-12 or 6-11 matchup. It's possible they don't win another game. What was the percent chance that they won't win another game? Was that it? Or 20%, 25%?
I'd say 25. Yeah,
there's a chance.
1 out of 4.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think that's. I think there's. It's even money on them making the Sweet 16 versus not winning another game. Put it that way.
Okay, that's fair. I'll give you that. You just don't know. Caleb Love gets hot in the tournament. Arizona's probably going to the Sweet 16.
Yeah,
because it's not like the 4 line is that great to begin with. Anyway, I mean, like if Arizona got matched up in a region with Michigan in the 4-5 matchup, Michigan is so overrated.
They just got destroyed by Illinois the other day,
and then they lost at home to Maryland tonight.
Yeah.
Before we recorded this. So
did they? Yeah. I didn't see that. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I mean, Michigan is as far as I'm concerned, Michigan is a complete fraud. They are a team that I would love for Arizona to meet in the tournament because I do not see Michigan advancing very far. So would love for them to be in Arizona's region. Mark that down. All right. Number 3, Shane. Next year's non-conference schedule is reminiscent of 2023's, and that's not a good thing as far as. And we'll have this debate over and over and over. Yeah. But Arizona scheduled a game with Auburn, home and home next year at McHale. They're playing Alabama and Birmingham for the return game from the other year at UConn, and then of course UCLA and either I think it's LA next year. Plus they may add some others. Is that too? Considering how good the Big 12 is that too tough a schedule in the non-conference?
You know what, Eric? Why don't you start with this one because you know what I'm going to say. Give me your best argument for why that's not a good thing.
All right, so it's cool. I mean, these games are cool, but it's not a good feeling when Arizona starts 4-5 or whatever it was. It's not. It's. I would rather Arizona go 8-3 and beat up on some of these teams, which will prepare them for the Big 12. Now, the argument can be made that the Wildcats weren't very good in the non-conference, but then they start 11-1 in Big 12 play, albeit they had a backloaded schedule in the Big 12. So it's. Nonetheless, they had some good road wins at, West Virginia and Cincinnati and BYU, among others. So, got to respect that. Those non-conference games toughened them up. I think 3 non-conference, 3, maybe 4, if they go above this, might be excessive. It's great for the fans. I just don't know if it helps the team.
I'm just going to stay with what I've always said, Eric. And I think that if nothing else, I've been more convinced of that after this, how we've seen this season play out. There is just no downside to scheduling these teams. You're not going to get punished in the net rankings if you lose. You're going to soar if you win. And I think the more punches you take throughout the season, not literally, but figuratively, the better. And I think Arizona was better off for playing the tough non-conference. This non-conference schedule wasn't as tough as last year's, but it was still challenging. And they lost some games they probably shouldn't have lost. But I think that their early success in the Big 12, and overall they're still 14-5. That's damn good in this conference.
Sure.
Is partly a result of being tested early. I don't think there's any downside to it. Lute Olson scheduled as many tough teams as he could back in the day all the time. Sean Miller subscribed more to your theory. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong, but I love getting challenged early and often. I mean, the entertainment value, sure, but they're getting tested by good teams throughout a season as opposed to the beginning or the end of the season. I don't think there's any downside to scheduling these games.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on. Talk another different sport that we haven't really gotten into in buy or sell yet thus far this season. Number 4, Shane, Arizona softball is the best active program on campus right now. And what would be your top 3 rankings of active teams? Obviously, the triathlon team, won a national championship. So let's leave them out because they're not necessarily active at the moment.
Right, yeah.
So active teams, rank your top 3 at the moment.
Well, to answer your first question, I'll buy that. I put softball just ahead of men's tennis, which we already talked about.
Yep. Okay.
They're hitting off the charts right now. They're batting .397 as a team, which is the second best in the country behind Florida. Regan Shockey, who we mentioned, Paige Dimmler, Kaya Altmaier are all hitting close to 500. They have so many great hitters up and down the lineup, including their pitchers, Devin Netz and Miranda Stoddard. My concern, again, like I've said many times with the team, is the pitching. And Arizona hasn't had an elite, top 10 national pitcher in a while. They have several very good ones again this year, but collectively they're 48th in the country in team ERA. And if you don't follow softball that closely, I just consider, I would suggest, other than quarterback in football, I think a pitcher in softball is probably the most important position at any collegiate team sport.
Yep.
But think about it this way. If Randy Johnson in his prime pitched every 3rd day instead of every 5th day, stayed healthy, how unstoppable would the Mariners, then later the Diamondbacks, have been? Arizona, they have several very good pitchers, but not someone who I would place in the elite category just yet. Hopefully they'll change as the season progresses, but I think that they're a College World Series contender, but I think to win it all, you have to have an elite pitcher. But definitely the way they've started, the win over UCLA, taking number 1 Texas to extra innings, they're off to a fantastic start. I think they're the best team on campus. I put men's tennis number 2. And then you got to pick, you got men's basketball, you got baseball, men's golf, women's golf, gymnastics. They're all very close together. If I had to choose, I'd probably put baseball 3rd after the streak they've been on, and then men's hoops. And after that, it's a very tough call. But I think softball and men's tennis are 1 and 2 in whatever order you want to put them. And then after that, it's tough.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Softball and men's tennis, I think, are far and away above. I'm going to put basketball 3 ahead of baseball. Getting swept off the bat. Yeah, I mean, this was a great series in Houston. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Maybe Texas A&M was a bit overrated. Nonetheless, it was great. It exceeded my expectations. But I'm going to put basketball just ahead of baseball. We'll to be determined about golf and gymnastics as well. So we'll talk more about them in future weeks. And number 5, Shane. Speaking of successful teams, I probably should be eating some more Chip Hale Crow. We know that over the past several years, I have said that I don't think Chip Hale is the right guy for this job, and I continually have been proven wrong. So, I'm going to buy that myself. What do you
answered the question you buy? Well, yeah, and that's fine. I think sometimes we're happy to eat crow on this show, right? I made the comment toward the end of the first Iowa State game that this game is going to end with more failed Caleb Love hero ball, and then I turned myself into Old Takes Exposed after he hit the half court shot, then hit a couple threes, and I was glad to do it. It's good to be wrong sometimes, especially when you're
and I think that's it. I think it's good to be wrong. Like, we're trying to come off. Sure, we're fans of the program. Don't get me wrong, but we also want to be authentic.
Yeah,
and we're gonna when the team plays well, we're gonna. And I thought Arizona basketball was dead in the water going into January. I was really wrong. We all thought the football team was going to be great. We were really wrong.
Yep.
We own it. Oh, well.
Yeah. And then, and then ASU picked last to win the conference, goes and wins the whole thing. So, yeah, no, that's why, as was Chris Berman say, that's why they play the games, right? But
you go ahead.
Yeah, good. No, go ahead.
We're going to talk a little football in the third segment. But before we bring on our friend Matt Muehlebach, I want to talk about our sponsor, Harrah's Auction Casino. Calling all Wildcat fans, did you know Harrah's Auction Casino is your local home for Caesars Rewards? Every play unlocks perks in more than 50 destinations nationwide. Enjoy free dining in Atlantic City, hotel stays in New Orleans, and exclusive rewards from coast to coast. Sign up today, earn reward credits, and experience nationwide play only at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Caesars Rewards in Arizona. Coming up next, it is Mr. Triple Double on Wildcat Country. So Shane, on Friday night, I'm sitting around. I like to make a few bets on some games, the late night special. Of course, that's how I roll. We got Nevada and UNLV on Fox Sports 1. I flip it on after making a second half bet, and whose voice do I hear? None other but the one and the only Mr. Triple Double, Matt Muehlebach, who now joins us here on Wildcat Country. Unfortunately, my bet didn't go so well, but hey, it's great listening to you on the air. Let's start with an Arizona question. I told you before the interview, hey, I'm going to give you something tough right off the bat. Matt, on a 1 to 10 scale, how likely is it that Arizona will win another basketball game this season?
10.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they're going to for sure win a tournament game.
Wow. You're going for sure. After watching the defense from the last three games.
It was not the kind of defense you want to play in the tournament, that's for sure. But I will say this about the defense. I don't know if you guys agree with me. They're tired. And I think they're a little physically tired, and I think they're mentally tired more than anything. Like if you saw some of the last plays against ASU, like it was like no talking, screen and roll layup, screen and roll layup, screen and roll wide open three. Like they weren't themselves. And I get it. Like I think they're tired from the season. I think they're tired from I think the Big 12 has worn them out a little bit, in a good way. Like it's.
But then when do you not get tired anymore? As we have a conference tournament tournament?
And everyone's tired this time of year, right?
Well, I was going to say, you know who was much more tired? ASU.
Yeah.
Who's actually a pretty good defensive team, and they look like they were playing like an NBA All-Star game on defense. Now they had a little bit of an excuse. They had 5 players or 6 scholarship players.
Yeah.
So I get it. They didn't play well, and actually, they didn't play well defensively against BYU. I was at that game.
Me too.
They didn't play well against Iowa State. I was at that. I was not at that game. That was at Iowa State. But on that game, to some degree, their offense really was bad. I mean, they spud. That was a road game and kind of roadkill. They were done after 5 minutes. And then they didn't play well against ASU defensively. So, but I think they felt like they had it. ASU snuck up on them though. That was it got a little. If you're an Arizona fan, that got nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you started getting flashes of 2 years ago in your
head. I know. And here's what I do like about Tommy Lloyd though. He's accountable. He said the defense wasn't very good. He said, look, we're going to dig into it. We're going to figure out, is it scheme? Is it, did they find a secret kind of sauce to our defense? What we're going to figure out what the issue is and address it. So I think in some ways, having a little lull right before the Big 12, right before Kansas and right before the Big 12 championship it's probably fine. I mean, it's going to be okay for them.
Yeah. Thinking about the 3-point defense, and Eric and I talked about this earlier in the show.
Yeah.
And by the way, sorry to take you away from the links for a few minutes there, Matt, but we'll get you back to it in a second. Against BYU, I was at that game. BYU, I was shocked when I looked at the box score and I saw that they went below 50% from three because it seemed like they were making every single one. But it's BYU, Iowa State, ASU. They collectively shot almost 50% from three against Arizona. Is that more just like, BYU was on a heater, ASU had nothing to lose? Was it more just like a case by case? Okay, it was just kind of a random thing, or is there more to it? Like Tommy Lloyd said, maybe they're cracking our code a little bit on defense for free.
Yeah. I do think it's a little bit of all of it. Like BYU offensively I think they're like a top 15 team in the nation when they get going, maybe better. ASU is pretty good offensively. I mean, and that's what ASU does. They go down and shoot threes. They have good talent. They take hard shots. They make hard shots. They've done it for years. And it's also why they have weird results where they might lose to Utah by 30 because they're missing their threes. They don't throw the ball inside like Arizona does. And so when you have that 3-point weapon, like it's nasty how fast they can get back in a game. And Iowa State, like I said, I think Iowa State was more, they were ready to pounce on Arizona. A lot of it was even offense. Arizona didn't play well offensively, so that connects your defense all of a sudden in very good. So I think it's that, Shane. I do think that, like, I think some of the communication in that game wasn't very good. I thought sometimes they helped out on guys driving where they shouldn't help. You got to know the scouting report, and you have to know. I've seen instances where you've had a good shooter, you close out on a decent shooter, and you're giving a wide open shot to a good shooter. Like, you got to understand the scouting report. Yeah. I'll say this. I think this has been Arizona's toughest team under Tommy Lloyd. I think it's been their most, and I say that physically and mentally. I think they're a really tough team. But I thought they had some lapses the last couple weeks. I just felt like they were a little bit fatigued, and they played good teams. So to your point, Shane, and I think they'll clean some of that up. And I just think that they've got to talk better. You have to talk. Look, everybody runs pick and roll. And I'll say this too, to some degree, defense is personnel, right? Sean Miller, when he was here in 14-15, I think he had the number 1 and number 2 defense in the entire country.
Yeah, they didn't allow more than 70 points in the game for a long time that year.
That's right. But remember, and Sean Miller hard hedged everything. Like if you set a screen at Dirtbags, they would have hard hedged Dirtbags. They hard hedged wherever you were. That was their game plan. But part of that too was they had TJ McConnell. They had Andre Hollis Jefferson. They had Aaron Gordon. They had Tarzuski. They just had ridiculous defensive personnel. And it's why they were the number 1 defense in the country. But you look at Xavier right now. Xavier's number 41 in the nation in defense. They're good, really good. Arizona's 25, 26. They're better. They don't hard hedge everything like Sean does. So look, you give me any scheme. I don't care what the scheme is. Hard hedge, blitz, ice, pick and roll, drop coverage. A buddy of mine, Quinn Snyder, who played at Duke. I remember I was actually, funny enough, or I guess coincidentally enough, I was talking to Bobby Hurley a few years ago, and he knew Quinn and from Duke, the Duke Brotherhood and all that. And he was telling me that Quinn once had like a book of it was a binder of 121 pages of how to defend screen and roll. You can defend it. There's so much nuance to it, but ultimately, most of it is energy and effort. And then there's a lot of detail. Give me any of those defenses. If you don't run the detail the right way, you're going to get burned. Yeah. I don't care which one it is, but you've got to have attention to detail. I felt like Arizona lost a little attention to detail last night against ASU.
And that leads me to my next question. So somebody, Tommy Lloyd, was asked after the ASU game, and he said, maybe. I wonder if this team is just ready to get to the tournament. That they've been beaten up so often. I mean, they played so many tough games, and ASU comes in. Yeah, the senior night they need to win, but they they're ready to they've so battle tested. They're ready to just take on, get to March Madness. Do you think there's some of the element of that? And was that something that maybe you faced when you were at Arizona as well?
I mean, we had good Pac-10s, but nothing like this kind of gauntlet that they play. First of all, it's 20 games. 20 games of league play is a gauntlet. Those 2 extra games, I mean.
Well, their non-conference schedule wasn't nothing either, right?
And their non-conference schedule was ridiculous. Yeah. So you're playing Duke and, at Wisconsin and whatever else. So, yeah, I think that's a great point. I think they are. And they're so experienced, right? Yeah. They're like, okay. And I think they kind of thought they proved to themselves and, of course, a lot of people that they could play in the Big 12. They're going to be, second or third when it's all said and done and get a first-round bye. I think that's an incredible statement.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but, yeah, and Tommy said it. Hey, we need to get better on defense. Like, it's like, obviously, Shane, you and I were there against BYU. It was just like, man, they were kind of getting what they wanted.
Yeah. It was at the point where I was we were standing and I would sit back down halfway through, this shot was halfway to the basket because I knew what was happening. It was just,
Well, that's how you are, Shane. That's in general how you, come on.
Do you know why? Because I've experienced it. I'm an Arizona, not just an Arizona Wildcats fan. I'm a Phoenix sports fan minus ASU, of course. I've been there, done that.
Even ASU, Shane, even ASU, when you look at that bowl game, I just want to say, you talk about heartbreaking ways to lose.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out. It does play to the Phoenix sports narrative.
It does.
All right, Matt. So when you look at playing a team potentially back-to-back within a 5-day span, like Arizona very well might against Kansas, is it like Arizona has a better chance to win game 2 than game 1 because even though it's in the state of Kansas, it's not, or it's close to Kansas. Like, what's the logic on playing a team back-to-back? And also part 2 of that is, can you expect a sweep or do you say, hey, best case, we get a split on the road, something like that?
Let me say this. First, have you guys ever been to Allen Fieldhouse?
No.
I never played there. I got recruited there. And in 1987, or 88, it was like the spring of 88, or 87, sorry. I saw Kansas against Notre Dame, and it was Danny Manning. You remember David Rivers for Notre Dame. Orlando Woolridge, I think, played in the game. The Kansas coach was Larry Brown. Dick Vitale.
You guys almost played them in the in '88 in the championship game. Yeah.
I was just talking to Sean Elliott the other night. I was like, damn, I wish we would have played them. We felt like we could beat them.
That's one of the first, not the age Matt, but that's one of the first basketball games I actually remember watching as a kid. Is Arizona Oklahoma in the final.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's like me watching the 76 Suns in triple overtime against the Celtics in the finals.
The shot heard around the world.
That's right. But so I'll just say this. I've played it. I think for me, the number one place I ever played was Cameron Indoor. That, how special it was and how good Duke was, and played against Bobby Hurley in that game, Grant Hill. Actually, Grant Hill he wasn't in that game. He was the next year. But anyway, Cameron, how small it was, how historic. But the game, I've been to a few games at Kansas, but the first one was that one I talked to you about. And I remember sitting there I was right behind the bench. Larry Brown was the coach. I was like, shit, I cannot play in this level. There's no way I'm playing. These guys are so damn good. I couldn't believe the intensity, and I couldn't believe the crowd too. So for me, Allen Fieldhouse is second of all time behind Duke. I thought it was second. It's special. And I'll say this, Kansas has had an up and down year. They've struggled lately. They struggled a few weeks ago really badly, but they're playing better. They could have easily beat Houston. I can't remember who the game before they demolished somebody.
Certainly should have beaten Houston.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'll be a tough game for Arizona. They can win that game, but I think for sure that tournament game will be a more winnable game because it will be neutral. And I haven't been to the Big 12 tournament ever, but I've heard it's just insane. I've heard Iowa State fans. If you think Arizona fans take over Vegas, I've heard Iowa State fans take over Kansas City like Not even close.
We had a Iowa State podcaster on last week, and he said
You did?
the same thing. Yeah.
I've heard of course, Kansas is right there. K-State is an hour away. Oklahoma State's not far. I mean, everyone's so close, and it's such great basketball. Just imagine, I was looking at the brackets. Just imagine you play Arizona. If you're Arizona, and you could play potentially Baylor the first game, and I think the winner of K-State or KU,
No, I think it's KU Baylor would
KU
play
Baylor.
on Wednesday, and then Arizona
Right.
would play the winner of that on Thursday.
I mean, that's crazy. So yeah, I think they have a better shot the second game. I think they have a good, I think they'll be favored if they play Kansas. Even if Kansas I think Kansas is going to be the favorite Saturday at home. And
Oh,
they're
yeah.
playing well. They're playing well. I mean, that'll be a tough game. So,
All right, so you go ahead. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, so you guaranteed that at the start, basically guaranteed, not fully, but that Arizona's going to win another game this season, which Shane and I discussed earlier. We're maybe a little bit more cynical. We're not giving it a 10 out of 10. So when you look at Arizona being a 4-5 or maybe a 6 seed, if they were to lose their next 2 games, isn't that, and I'm not trying to be cynical here, but isn't that right territory for an upset against one of these mid-majors or maybe a play-in game? Does that concern you, or do you think Arizona's just going to focus based on what we've seen the past few years of maybe letting teams stay in it that they shouldn't?
Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was concerned. The tournament scares the hell out of me.
Sure.
Like that tournament. But I will say this. I think this Arizona team, to me, is more equipped for a rock fight than they've ever been.
Yeah.
And I've said this, so I'm going to repeat what I've said. If anybody's heard it, I apologize. But for 35, 40 years, Arizona's been rolling out a Ferrari every year. And I feel like this team's a little more of like a Ford F-150 4x4, dual cab. Like it's not like the Ferraris are great for the Autobahn. And that's to some degree why Arizona's lost in the past, because it's off-road. It's not an Autobahn. It's not a sprint. It's a rock fight. And I think this team is better equipped. It doesn't guarantee that Arizona shoots, 4 for 25 from 3 and they lose, or that the other team shoots 12 for 20 and they lose. But I think they're more equipped for it. I think it's a really tough team. And I think they went through this lull, which is fine. I think it'll be good for them at the end. And so I think I actually, in a weird way, would kind of love it if they were a 6-11. Because if you're a 6-11, you do have a tough first game, no question about it. But your second game is against a 3, right? And if you're I guess if you're a 4 or 5, you ultimately play a 5 and then you play a 1,
Right.
in the Sweet 16. And the ones are hard. I think Arizona would, if you play a Duke or an Auburn or whatever, that's going to be a hard game. I mean, they're gonna have to come up with something special to win that game. So I'd love to see them play a 6-11, then a 6-3, and then they play like a 2, right? 2 in the tournament, 2s are drastically different than 1s.
100% agree. Couldn't agree more with you. Couldn't agree more.
Okay, look, Matt, I want to ask you about McKale Center. We were talking about home court advantages and everything. And, I was at the BYU game, and McKale, especially at the end of the game, was as loud as it always is. But McKale's not the impenetrable fortress that it was back in the day when Arizona won 70 or something like 80-something straight at home. They've lost 3 games at home this year, almost lost a 4th to Iowa State. Is McKale Center as big a home court advantage just in terms of the atmosphere in that arena that it was when you were playing?
Good question. I think so. I mean, I think maybe it's just, you've got a team that's like, what, 20, 22, 24. They've been as high as 15 or 12. Or I just think during so many of those years, Arizona was like in the top 5. And so for them to lose, well, 2 things. For them to lose was probably just super rare because how good they were. And also, I just think that like the Big 12 is good. Like,
sure,
Pac-10 would have 2 big games. It'd be like Stanford, UCLA. The other 16 games, whatever. The other 7 games you're going to win, no question at home.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to even before, like last year, they lost to Washington State at home. Like they consistently. I mean, they're very good at home still. Don't get me wrong. And I think the energy in the arena is always like, we're going to find a way to win this game. It's very positive, and I love that. But you're averaging losing 1 or 2 games a year at home now, whereas before, like they just did not lose at home. And I'm wondering maybe just because players are getting better playing on the road, or it's I'm just trying to think of a reason why.
I don't know. Maybe that. I do think the 3-point shot changes basketball. In the old days, like we could have shot threes all the time, but it just no one. I equate it to the Roger Bannister in the 4-minute mile. When he ran nobody had ever run one. When he did, I think like the dam broke open and like everybody was running one like the next weekend. And back in the day, like even though Lute was like a total proponent of shooting threes, and he was one of the like innovative guys, when I was there, like we were throwing the ball inside all the time.
Yeah.
And now, teams shoot it so much from the outside. It's just, if you have one hot team and they hit 14 threes against a good team, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
And I don't think we knew how good Washington State was last year. That guy Wells is killing it in the NBA. Their forward, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was really good. Their
Miles Rice.
Miles Rice playing at Indiana was
with
really
Umar.
Good.
Yeah.
That's it with Umar. That's right. But it's a good question, Shane. I don't know if I answered it correctly, but
no, I don't know. There is a correct answer. I just wanted to get this from someone who played in that environment back in the day. But I
will say though,
yeah,
when we got it going at McHale, there was a confidence that we just weren't going to lose.
I think there's so many games there where Arizona plays not its best game of basketball by any stretch, and then you look at the scoreboard and they're only down 3, and it's just like the fans just find a way to drag them past the finish line. That almost happened against BYU, and then we get that call at the end. But,
is it
what?
Is it late games? Like, do we have a little bit less of a? I mean,
I don't know.
Is a fan base?
Yeah, but fans, players got to travel for that too. I don't know. It's a good question. And look, for those who are listening, leave us a comment. Let me know what you think, because I'm genuinely interested in the answer. Last question for you, Matt. Eric's panicking again because Arizona once again has a tough non-conference schedule next year. They scheduled Auburn, which I think is awesome. I don't think there's any downside to playing tough games in non-conference. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, none. Like it's all good. Like, they smoked Wisconsin last year. They got smoked this year. It doesn't really matter. The year that UNLV, Bobby Hurley beat Vegas in 91. I thought the 91 Vegas team is the greatest team that's ever played college basketball. I still kind of think that. I'm not sure if maybe there's some teams that may be better now. But, we beat Duke at home. And I remember after we beat Duke, Krzyzewski and Hurley said that was the best thing that ever happened to us. Like going to McHale, almost beating Arizona, double overtime. It taught us like what we needed to do, and we kind of figured it out even in a loss, So I think those games are really good. Now, they were great in the Pac-10 era when Pac-10 schedule wasn't as challenging. They do create a challenge nowadays.
Here's the problem that I have, Matt. Just in general with scheduling, and I'm just thinking ahead of the postseason here. Like, all right, the non-conference is fine, whatever. Shouldn't the home arena, you and Shane talking about McHale Center, you talking about Allen Fieldhouse, shouldn't teams like the women's bracket get a chance to host first couple rounds on their home court?
Oh, I mean, okay. I have 2 answers. One is, if you want to talk about fairness, that probably would be more fair, but it doesn't create as much excitement.
Okay. I don't want to. I know I'm going to go there.
Hey, Eric, everyone loves to see Arizona lose at Syracuse. And
horrible.
Well, but I think, I think that's the point. To Eric's point, I think that could, like, if for example, when Arizona played Princeton a couple of years ago, that's the kind of game where all the neutral fans are going to turn into a home court for Princeton, because they all want to see the big favorite lose.
Oh yeah. Well, you guys probably, I don't know if you remember this, the year before I got to Arizona, I'm watching the first round of the tournament. Ted Robinson actually announced the game. I was watching this, and I ended up announcing games with Ted Robinson. I couldn't believe it. But it was Arizona versus UTEP. And UTEP beat Arizona in 1986 at McHale Center.
And that was the last game they lost before they went on the 80-some game winning streak, and then Don McLean and UCLA ruined it, I think, like in 94.
Yep. Derek Martin hit a shot over, I think, Damon Stoudemire to win by 1 in 92.
Good memory there, Shane. Obviously, Matt. Obviously, I expect you to know that.
I mean, I know, yeah. Good memory by Shane.
But see, here's like I want to see the bigger teams win. I think it's better in the Sweet 16 when we get Auburn against Arizona, 1 against the 4, than Auburn against Princeton. I mean, we already know it's going to. There's the occasional St. Peter's garbage, but for the most part, give me the Blue Bloods playing each other, the best teams, for a chance to win. That's what I want to see. Am I crazy in thinking that way?
Oh, you're not. You're not. But let's face it. Like, there are upsets, and so we see the upsets, and they make all the headlines. But the reality is, by the time you get to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, 80% of the games are the top teams. There's a couple in there, that are a little odd, but for the most part, you're going to see those teams. The last 2 years, Arizona's been this. Last 3 years, they've been in 2 Sweet 16s. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because they lost to Princeton. They lost to Princeton in between. They went Sweet 16.
2 of the last 3, though.
We lost 3. Yeah,
2 of the last 3. They've been the Sweet 16. They played Houston 3 years ago. That, to me, is the best Tommy Lloyd team he's had.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. With Matherin. Yeah.
But Houston should have been a 1 seed. At the worst, a 2 seed. That should have been a Final Four game.
Yeah.
That was a joke that it was a Sweet 16 game. A total joke.
And in Texas, that was.
And in Texas, it was a bad matchup. Like, it just, everything about it kind of sucked for Arizona.
Yeah.
Princeton sucked for sure. But, last year, Arizona kind of got to where they should have won. They should have beat Clemson. They just, they were bad.
But Clemson was the best team they played in months because of the Pac-12 schedule. So
that's a great point. And that is the difference to me in if you're Arizona, why the Big 12 is the better conference.
Yeah.
This is a type of interview that Shane and I really enjoy doing because it's just like 3 guys sitting at the bar over a beer talking basketball. So really
let's do that next time.
Yeah, bring our beers to the.
Let's go there. Yeah, let's go to Dirtbags.
Go to them, exactly, right? Matt, thank you so much as always for.
We
for
doing it next time at Dirtbags?
If Shane's willing to make the drive, over, let's do it. Well,
I took a picture.
Which Dirtbags are we doing? Are we doing the one in Phoenix or the one in Tucson?
No, Tucson. Come on.
Oh, okay.
It's got to go to the original.
Shane, I'll pick you up. We'll meet Matt down there.
You got to come down here. We'll go to a game. Maybe we'll just go to a baseball game, and then we'll go to Dirtbags. I took a picture the other day. It was the one. If you go when you walk in Dirtbags, you go on the other side of the bar. I took a picture with Glenn Parker, U of A football player.
Yep, of course.
And Chuck Cecil, and Cecil's picture was the one above the bar there blocking the punt against UCLA, and right next to it is Steve Kerr, I think defending or going against Pooh Richardson from UCLA. So we took that picture.
No photos of your triple double.
What's that?
No photos of your triple double in there.
I'm trying to get that in there, man. I'm talking to Mark, the bartender, man.
Why
can't we get that in there? And I look like the biggest guy in there. And I told them, I said, point guard you has turned into linebacker you. Yeah. But it was fun. We had a good time in there. Cecil told me a great story. He said he told the announcers the day before the game that he was going to block that punt. He said, we saw something on film. I'm blocking the punt. You can call it out right now. And there's a great picture of him blocking the UCLA punt in Dirtbags. It's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Great history.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
All right, Shane. Great to talk to Matt. It was just like, you and I talked about it off air, and I said it on air as well. It's like sitting at the bar and
shooting the breeze,
hanging out with him.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, some
great
of our
stuff.
our best interviews, especially with a lot of former football players. Scooby Wright. I mentioned to you one of my favorites was with Keola Antolin, former Arizona running back. We just kind of talked for 20 minutes about just. He's reliving his football glory days and on playing the game. We're remembering what it was like watching him from the stands, and it was so those are the most fun. We're not just like interviewing a person; we're just all kind of trading our thoughts, and love that. And Matt's a great guest.
We're pretty close to 250 episodes, right? This is like 248, 249.
248, I think. Yeah. Maybe we should think about some sort of giveaway for 250.
Yeah, we'll have to. I'll have to reach out to Harris Auction.
Don't want to speak out of turn, but yeah, we should do something.
Yeah. All right, I'll reach out. Let's talk a little football here for a second. The FanDuel came out with their odds for winning the Big 12. And listen, we know how it played out last year with ASU where they were picked last. Shane, Arizona is 65-1 to win. And I think you tweeted about this. Yeah. They're 65-1 to win the conference. Like, there's got to be a little value. There's got to be a little value on that bet, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, what was ASU last year? Do you remember? I think they were even worse.
They were down. They were down there, yeah.
So if you put $5 on Arizona to win the Big 12, and if they do, you come back with a little over 300.
Yeah,
a decent value. I might even make that bet myself. I mean, do I think they're going to win the Big 12? No. Do I think they're going to finish in the top half of the Big 12? No. I don't think they're going to finish last either. I think they'll probably right now. I'm thinking like 11th, 12th, something like that. But no, I'm not a gambler like you are, but I was just surprised that between that and seeing other, power rankings for next year, everyone's picking Arizona to finish last. I'm a little surprised. I mean, last year wasn't
with a
good,
veteran quarterback.
Yeah,
with a veteran quarterback. It's not like this team was 2-10. Yeah. I mean, they won 4 games. I mean, it wasn't great, but they won 4 games. I know they lost a lot, but
like I said, I mean. They do have a tougher schedule next season, and they could go 4-8 again and be better. They could be more competitive because I think part of it was they lost 8 games, but a lot of those games were they were not competitive at all, including their last game against ASU. They just got blown out of the water. So that's part of it. Not all 4-8 seasons are created equal, I guess, and I think Arizona is going to improve upon next season, but I certainly don't think their record is going to be much better. But I do expect them to do better than last in the Big 12.
Yeah, I would like to see Arizona, what their win total projection is. Probably if it's 3.5, I would probably play the over. If it's 4.5, probably the right number. If it's 5, if you can get it at 5.5 and make a little plus money on it, I think Arizona needs to make a bowl game this year. For Brent Brennan's sake, they need to make a bowl game.
And I think we just need to see improvement. I think that I understand that it comes down to wins and losses at the end of the day. But I mean, if they win 4 games and they lose, say they go to Iowa State and lose by a field goal, it was a tough game, and they have a couple other games like that. I think it's fair to take a step back and say, okay, this team's on the right track, and we need to stick with it.
Make a bowl game. We'll argue about this over and over and over.
Sure.
One team we haven't talked about yet on the show, and I purposely saved them until our pick segment. Women's basketball. They're kind of still on the fringe. I guess the bubble is weak. And I mean, you probably know a little bit more about this than I do. What are your thoughts?
Not a lot more, but I was a little surprised because I thought it was win the Big 12 tournament or bust for them, and it might be. But ESPN's women's bracketologist Charlie Cream, last I saw, has Arizona as one of its first 4 out.
Second team out
overall. So. They're right there. Of course, you have to think just like on the men's side, there's going to be some bid stealers, and especially in the smaller conferences, the lesser conferences, whatever you want to call them. But so Arizona's got some work to do. They did earn a first round bye in the conference tournament as an 8 seed. They're very likely to play 9 seed Colorado in the first round. I think they're probably going to need, assuming that the bracketology is about right. They're probably going to need to at least beat Colorado to have a prayer, but likely have to beat Haley Van Lith and TCU in the quarterfinals, the top seed, which is not likely. They played TCU tough the other week at McHale, but it's not likely. So I think that's probably what they're going to have to do. I'm not going to predict it to happen, but the fact that they're still on the bubble, at least according to ESPN's resident women's bracketologist expert, surprises me a little bit, pleasantly surprises me.
Colorado did beat Houston today, so it'll be
There you
Arizona and
go. There
Colorado
you
on Thursday. I mean, win that game, and I think I'm going to say it this way, just based on assuming there's not a ton of bid steal. If Arizona were to beat Colorado and then somehow beat TCU, I think they're in the tournament, which is
Oh yeah,
crazy to
I
say.
agree. That would be a marquee win. It would be, Arizona doesn't have, they have one quad one win. So that's
Oof.
why I thought they wouldn't be anywhere near the bubble. And they have some bad losses, but if they are indeed that close and they get a win over TCU at the second quad one win and a very defining one, especially this late in the season, because I think that selection committee for both men and women do tend to reward late season games, late season wins a little bit more than early season. That would probably be enough. It's just not likely.
All right, let's get to picks. Last week, I went 3 out of 4. You went 2 out of 4. I have a 5 point lead on you, but
Mm.
long way to go, Shane.
Mm.
Let's give me your Big 12 unranked road win this week. I'm guessing we probably have the same one.
Oh, you know what? I think I screwed up mine. Why don't you tell me yours first, and then I'll chime in.
I'm gonna go with TCU at Colorado just because Colorado stinks.
Mm.
I just cannot imagine that Colorado. I mean, right now in conference, they're in last place. They're 2-17.
Yeah.
ASU, by the way, is 15 out of 16. But I think Colorado absolutely stinks. And TCU 9-10. I mean, they're hanging in. They're not as bad as we thought. Now, I don't know the tie-breaking scenarios if they win and Arizona were to beat Kansas, or I'm not sure if TCU can jump a Baylor or Kansas.
Yeah.
Probably not, but in the Big 12 tournament. But I'm going to go with the Horned Frogs to even their Big 12 record over Colorado and maybe force Tad Boyle into retirement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna change things up a little because I think we were gonna have the same one, but since I need to catch up, I'll probably fall more behind. But I'm gonna go ahead and take Cincinnati against Oklahoma State. Cincy needs the win.
Oh,
They're probably on the outside of the bubble right now.
they're done. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a loss there, a win there, a win at Oklahoma State is not going to move the needle, but a
Nope.
loss is definitely going to move them from like first or next four out to off the bubble entirely, unless they win the Big 12 tournament. So it's a must win. And I think they'll get it done.
I'm going to give you a layup here, Shane, for ranked upset, and then I'm going to go with a stunner for you. So
Okay.
you want to start with the ranked upset, the ranked team that's going to lose this weekend?
Ranked team that's going to lose. I'm going to go with Illinois over Purdue.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, Illinois is coming off a 20-point win in Michigan, so I'll be at least for this game a Kylan Boswell believer. Illinois is very likely in the tournament, but this would
Oh
definitely
yeah.
solidify it and help boost their seeding. So I'll go with Illinois.
I'm giving you a crazy one. North Carolina is playing really good basketball right now. North Carolina beats Duke on Saturday. Number 2 Duke goes
As
down.
hot as Duke has been. So someone joked on social media that well, Duke is like they won their last 4 games by 48, 42, 37, and 33 points. So that they're definitely on a downward trend, jokingly, but they're red hot right now.
So is North Carolina, Shane. I mean, they're
Yeah.
scoring points in bunches. They've won 5 in a row, and this would get them in the tournament. Right now, they're on the outside looking in. Probably
Yeah,
they need
that'd be
this
something.
game. Desperate team at home. All right, Arizona, Kansas. I'll start. Wasn't going to pick Arizona to win this game before I saw the Iowa State game nor what I saw from the ASU game. So I'm just going to stick with it. I think the Wildcats keep the game close, and I think Kansas hits a few free throws down the stretch and wins this game by something like 8 points. I just don't see the Wildcats ready to pull the upset based on what we've seen from them over the last 2 weeks, and they may be tired, like Matt said.
Yeah, I agree with you. Except I'm even less optimistic. I think Kansas probably controls this game mostly from start to finish. They're not as good as they usually are, but I just think the way Arizona's playing right now, I think they have a chance to bounce back in the NCAA tournament. I just don't think it's going to happen yet. It's a very tough place to play. It kind of stinks in that you're looking at the schedule at the beginning of the season and you're thinking this game could be for the Big 12 title. Both teams should be ranked in the top 10, top 15, and you have an unranked Kansas team against a barely ranked Arizona team. I think both teams are looking forward to bigger and better things, but I think for Kansas this is a bigger game because they've not lived up to their expectations. They're going to be at home. Their defense is very good. They're number 6 in Ken Palm. They're kind of shaky on offense. So if Arizona gives up a dozen threes, if Kansas shoots 50% from 3 against Arizona, Kansas is shooting like 34% for the year. That again is a problem. But I just the flow of the season, I think Arizona is probably going to get their butt kicked by, I'm going to say 15 points. Again, I don't think they can't. Doesn't mean they can't turn things around for the Big 12 and or NCAA tournament, but I just don't think this game is going to go well for them.
Coming up on next week's show, we're going to predict the Big 12 tournament and what seed Arizona will get. Will they show something in Lawrence this weekend at Allen Fieldhouse? I think they might. Keep it relatively close. Shane does not, but we'll find out. Thanks to our buddy Matt Muehlebach for joining us. Always great to catch up with him. For Shane Dale, I am Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening, and as always, bear down.